personal mission is to inspire and educate future leaders to think and act in a socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable way. And what that means to me is, that is a really big picture. Hold on, somebody give me a picture of me by myself. Ridiculous. Sorry about that. I didn't realize the screen was going to be so big. But what that means to me is making the next generation, and I mean all of us are the next generation as well. We're all going to live to 150 years old. So if that's the case, we got to take care of this earth. We got to take care of each other, and we have to make sure that everybody in this world is taken care of. And I think by transforming how we learn, not only how we learn, but what we learn, and do so in building our next generation of companies and next generation of employees to think in the triple bottom line in terms of social, economic, and environmental sustainability. If we don't do that, it's going to be a mess. So let's just start thinking in those three terms instead of just making money all the time. So XR is a catch-all phrase. I'm going to kind of skip through a few of these slides just in case they're kind of, maybe they're too easy for people, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but I'm just going to go through them anyway. A catch-all phrase for AR, VR, and MR. There we go. But why XR? Why now? And the reality of this, and I put here, because it's a public-facing slide, that AR and VR and MR and XR will collectively create $1 trillion in value over the next 10 years. That doesn't mean they're going to sell $1 trillion worth of headsets. What that means is the value that's going to be created for enterprises, schools, educators, people, everybody in society will be over $1 trillion. Now that 10-year number is not going to be 10 years, it's going to be 5 years. So you think about the amount of money that's saved when Walmart rolls out training, decreasing training times by 900%. When you talk about Bentley Car Company designing a car in 1/10 the time, Bell Helicopters designing a helicopter in 6 months instead of 6 years, all because of virtual and augmented reality. This is massive value creation. And it's not about sales numbers, it's about value creation. So why now? We're past this hype cycle. We went through this, hey, look at VR, look at AR, how cool it is. Awesome, great, show me the money. And we're now starting to see use cases that are driving real ROI, and this is what's going to drive this thing forward. It's not, you go to a business, you show them something cool, that's great. They may do a pilot, but it's going to die there. You show real return on investment, and they're going to invest in it for the future. And what we're seeing in this industry is over a 60% compounded annual growth rate. I don't think there's, other than AI, there's no other industry in the world growing that fast. Now, a big kind of add to this is going to be 5G. And these telcos are really they're going to ram 5G down our throats. You're going to see 5G ads everywhere. But the reality is we're kind of maybe 2 years away from kind of mass ubiquitous 5G. But when it gets here, millimeter wave 5G is 1,000 times faster. You're going to be able to download the entire, all seasons of Game of Thrones in about a minute. Like, no, I'm not kidding. I asked I was like, what does that actually mean? They said, you can download the whole season of Game of Thrones in a minute. Awesome. Like, holy shit. That's a lot. That's like amazing. So right before I get on a plane, I can download the whole thing and watch it on a plane. Great. But where are the market opportunities? And the other slide showed, kind of gaming and entertainment versus enterprise. It's really about 60% of gaming and entertainment, and the other 40% is enterprise. And we're seeing it already in healthcare, engineering, real estate. All of these different entities are really starting to use this. And right now, the global XR industry is about $8 billion. It will end this year, call it 8 to 10 billion, give or take. But by 2021, it'll be $110 billion. That's a 10x growth in 3 years. That's where we're going with this. Right now, we're at the evolution of technology. We've gone through several, huge industrial revolutions, but they've all contributed to linear growth. We're about to hit the exponential curve. And when that happens, all bets are off. It's gonna get crazy. And it's not just one technology. It's a convergence of technologies, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. Great. Artificial intelligence, molecular genetics, quantum computing, IoT sensors. It goes on and on. There's about 140 emerging technologies right now. And they're all converging at the same time. Never before in human history have we ever had this. Kids are growing up with the world's knowledge in their fingertips. So let's give it to them in a way that helps them do great things in this world. So anybody seen this before, the Gartner hype cycle? Basically, Gartner puts out a research thing, and they say, hey, look at all these, is this a laser pointer on here? No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so if you look on this, this is 2017, VR and AR were just coming out of what's called the trough of disillusionment. At the top there, it's like, yeah, VR, woo! And then it's like, oh shit, we're not making any money. So that was 2017. If you look at 2018, augmented reality is still there, but VR is off because VR is already starting to make a value chain in enterprise, in business, in gaming. It's off the chart altogether. And 2019, AR is off the chart, mixed reality is off the chart, and now 5G is at the top of the hype cycle. Woo, 5G! Can't buy it, but yay! So this is going to go through a trough of disillusionment when you buy your 5G phone, you walk into the store and it doesn't work. You're like, great. So that's how these things work. But look at all the ones coming in on the left there. You know, decentralized web, AR cloud, 3D printing, nanoscale 3D printing. These are all emerging technologies, all just coming in right now. And there's another 100 beyond that. This is going to get crazy. But we're still here in this technology. We are literally still just past the brick phone phase of this. We haven't got to iPhone quite yet. VR versus AR, you guys know this. Anybody know 6DoF versus 3DoF? So 3DoF is 3 degrees of freedom, meaning you can look left, right, up, down, but you can't move. 6 degrees, meaning you can look up, left, right, and move through the space. It's a big difference. The Oculus Go, for example, it's great. You can look around, but you can't move, you can't interact with it. And in 6DoF, you can move through the space. Pixels versus voxels. We are used to programming in 2D for all of humanity. You know, as we developed screens and reading, we've been looking at rectangles. We've been looking at books in rectangles, TVs in rectangles, phones in an up and down rectangle. It's a rectangle world. But we're moving away from pixels and to voxels. So what that means is the compute power required to generate three-dimensional objects is exponentially more. So what we need is a way to kind of figure that out. In foveated rendering, does anybody know foveated rendering? Basically, your eyes only focus in the middle 5%. If you hold your head out, look at your fingers, and then try to look at the periphery, it's blurry. And the reason is your eyes really only focus on that center 5%. So what we're able to do now is using eye tracking, which all the headsets will have. Is the HoloLens 2 going to have eye tracking? I think it is. I don't know. The Magic Leap has eye tracking. I'm sure the HoloLens 2 will have it. But all the headsets in the next 5 years will have eye tracking. And what that will allow programmers to do is know where you're looking any given time and render only what you're looking at in high res, and everything else can be low res. What's behind you doesn't matter. It can render as you turn around. That's going to be really important as you start to program these things because the data required to do this is going to be so massive, so we got to compress that down. We're seeing a convergence of all these technologies. AR, VR, IoT, quantum computing, cloud computing, all of this blockchain is coming together at the exact same time, and they're all working together. If you're working in VR and AR and you're not thinking about AI, computer vision, machine learning, natural language processing, you're missing out. You're gonna fall behind. You have to start thinking in terms of all of the technologies working together. So what about the forecast? Where are these going? If you look at this line in 2019, where we are right now, actually 2018, we'll go back a little bit. 2018, consumer and gaming and everything was more than enterprise. We just started to realize that, holy crap, we can train people 10 times faster. Whoa, if that's the case, enterprise is gonna be the growth factor here. And enterprise is going to be a much, much larger market than entertainment as we scale with this technology. Now, these are investments in VR and AR. 237% increase from 2014 to 2016. We don't have the numbers beyond that, but people are throwing enormous amounts of money into this. Now, a big portion of that is probably Magic Leap because they raised $3.5 billion. So, I mean, there's a little bit of money that went to that company. But to be honest, a lot of investors got in really early, 2014, 2015, 2016, very early, and that's okay. But now, right now, 2019 is the time to invest because the curve goes straight up from here. We're going to make more money in VR and AR in the next 10 years more money will be created, more value will be created in the world in the next 10 years than all of previous human history. Think about that for a second. More value will be created in the next 10 years than we did in all of human history past. There is a city amount of buildings. So imagine Manhattan, the entire Manhattan, being built right now in the world every single month. So where is this good value going to come from? It's going to come from all of these different types: manufacturing, construction, manufacturing companies right now. So one of my colleagues works for a semiconductor company. They just 10x their standard operating procedure capture. So they're able to use a RealWear glass with a camera and do standard operating procedure capture 10 times faster. Car companies are designing cars faster. All of these are going to be impacted by this technology. This is interesting. When you look at where VR and AR is going to impact the most, physical labor training is going to be the biggest. Hands-on, anything when you have to train somebody hands-on. One of the things we're doing right now, we're actually running a trial. Can my 11-year-old daughter go in VR, learn how to drive an excavator, and then go and drive an excavator? I don't know. The video will either be really funny or really impactful. It's not my excavator, it doesn't matter. Considerations when building this technology. It has to be device agnostic. When you build something, it has to push out to VR, AR, it has to push out to 3D. You have to think that everybody's got different devices. There's going to be 100 different VR headsets. There's going to be 50 different AR headsets. You have to start thinking, how do we push this out to get it to everybody? Natural interactions. I know Facebook actually this morning announced that they're, with the Oculus Quest, now has finger and hand tracking. So being able to reach out. How many people have messed with the HoloLens 1 and you're clicking like this? Well, anybody over 30 is like, they're poking at it and they don't know it. Any kids, they're like, yeah, I got it, no problem, I got it. Their two hands are doing it. But being able to just reach out and grab something naturally, that's really what it's important. And things have to be enterprise ready. Enterprises, they focus on security, safety, cloud. These are all things that you need to consider. I'm not going to go through every one, you can read them. Learning retention cone, VR, down at the bottom, 75%. I'm just going to skip that because we already talked about it. So what are the types of immersive training? So you can have 360 video training, and it turns out, we were doing 360 video 5 years ago when you had to kind of glue cameras together. It turns out 360 video is very, very impactful. Striver just raised $20 million and rolled out VR training to over 1 million people this year with Walmart using just 360 video. We get really crazy with the technology, and sometimes we overthink it. We get all the way over to here when we could have been doing something really simple. Mobile phone-based AR. Sprint rolled out mobile phone-based AR training and saved $11 million. So let's start thinking about the practical uses, not getting caught up in the technology. I think I'm guilty of it, trust me. We've built all sorts of crazy stuff that we are like, oh, that was expensive. But try to use the lowest piece of tech to get the maximum ROI. That's my advice on this slide. So the promise of XR is really faster, better training, lower cost to deliver, less travel costs, higher frequency. People in VR can't be on their phones. Think about that. You hijack their 100% of their attention. And then when you add a collaboration in VR, it is truly amazing. And mixed reality is the same. You have spatial, for example. You'll be able to put your friends in the room with you, and if they're in the way, just pick them up, move them. But there'll be digital avatars, and you can collaborate in any space. And that's really powerful. So industry examples, Walmart increased their training times by 900%. They took a 2-day training course and decreased it to two 20-minute segments. That's crazy. A crazy reduction in training times. Sprint rolled out training and saw speed to competency increase by 300%, saving them $11 million. And UPS is now training all their drivers in VR. And they decreased their driver training time by 2/3. I was very lucky last night. I had dinner with Shelley Peterson from Lockheed Martin. They're using the HoloLens AR to add bolts and stuff to the spacecraft. They were over at NASA, and they decreased their time from 8 days for 2 people to put these screws in this thing because they have the paper manual and they got to measure and all this. Using the HoloLens, they decreased it to 6 hours 1 person from 8 days with 2 people. That's insane. That's a 93% decrease in time. So what does that look like? Maybe it's something very simple, like a static 360 image. When you're in, you look around, you're like, oh, look for the anomalies. Oh, there's a tripping hazard, there's something out of place here. This is just a quick example of retail training. This was just something I mocked up, but imagine being able to put people in an environment that they're going to be working in and giving them tasks to learn. Now, Walmart's doing something really interesting as a byproduct of their training, which I thought was mind-blowing. So as a byproduct of their training, they showed something, they asked them the questions. What they realized is that they are able to use the answers that people are giving to make better decisions on promotions from within. So now they're using it as a promotion tool from within Walmart. They had people that were working there 10 years as stock boys, and they're like, man, this guy's amazing for management material. And they didn't know until they were in the VR and they had this analytics. The amount of data we are able to collect out of these headsets is obscene. Eye tracking, pose, head pose, gait analysis, speech analysis, gaze where they're looking, speed to accuracy. It's amazing. Is that gonna work? I guess we're not gonna have videos. Oh, that's okay. People and I'm gonna go through these. I'm just gonna fire through these. People are training in all sorts of things. Flight training. Obviously, we're in the home of simulation training. Whoops. There we go. This one is really cool. It's not that exciting. It's de-icing a plane. I actually tried it. It's probably the most boring simulator I've ever been on. It is terrible. But if you got to train somebody, and the only way to train people prior to this was to put them on a machine and spray chemicals onto a plane. That's not an efficient way to train people. So you can do it in a controlled environment with far less cost. Lockheed Martin has been using VR and AR simulation training. Orlando's built on this with, you've got tons of simulation trainings. This is really cool. Wrench mechanic training. It teaches you how to be a mechanic. It's gaming. I saw one the other day. I thought it was really cool. It was Thief Simulator. Let's teach people to steal things. I reached out to those guys. I said, guys, you have an amazing game mechanic. It's fantastic. Can we apply it to something that isn't stealing cars? Like, really? Let's be honest. Bus driver training. Magically virtual AI avatars. Being able to have an AI avatar, an agent, that is able to answer your questions. Imagine if you're a kid, you wear these glasses. Let's kind of close our eyes and look out 10 years. 10 years from now, we'll wear glasses. They'll be Magic Leap and HoloLens quality AR, much larger field of view, much better graphics, eye tracking, heart rate, everything. But they'll be in a form factor of a pair of glasses, and you won't have the computer in your pocket. It'll be in the cloud. Because cloud computing, edge computing will be a real thing by then. It is now, but it's not quite there that we can have sub-millisecond accuracy. So we still need a long way to go. But in 10 years from now, we will have that. We have the ability using these technologies to create avatars that are AI-driven that give you all the answers, and you have an AI-driven avatar teaching you. And that avatar is based on an expert in space or whatever it is you want to learn. Has anybody seen Z-Space? This is an amazing technology. You put on these lightweight, cheap glasses, and you're able to pull things out of the screen in 3 dimensions, and multiple people can interact. This company is doing about $400 million a year in sales right now. Think about that. It's one of the only companies in education and 3D technologies making that kind of money. It's amazing. Crane training. This is so cool. It bolts onto a normal table, just 2 handles, you bolt on. It's the exact one-to-one replication of a crane. You go through these modules. My buddy did this training. He spent 1 hour on the training. They took him out and he drove a real crane, no problem. Amazing. Like, the brain is elastic, and we're able to just teach people fast. It's like the Matrix. You plug in, I want to learn Kung Fu. It's going to be like that. Now we've got, Elon Musk coming up with brain-computer interfaces. I'm going to sew these electrodes into your head. That's happening. So it's coming. Forklift training. This is a great way to keep people safe. And I don't know if anybody know Charlie Fink from Forbes? Charlie Fink's the XR editor from Forbes. If you don't know him, maybe you should follow him. He's amazing. But here he is trying out a forklift training on a real size simulator, and that simulator can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be on the factory floor. So you can train people in safe environments for complicated tasks. What about just like AR maintenance, being able to look at things and know how to fix them real time? This one here is, it's a mock-up, but imagine being able to look at a piece of machinery and it will just automatically tell you how to fix it. And if you can't fix it, you can call your friend. They can see what you're seeing because there's a camera looking at it, and they can annotate on your vision. This exists already. I think Microsoft HoloLens has an application. If not, PTC has an application called Chalk, I believe it's called, and you can write on other people's view. This is a thing that exists today already. Oil and gas training, being able to put people on pipelines, being able to put them in remote areas. You know, one of the things that we did originally was we created a quick simulator for a mining company because they spend about $60,000 when they hire somebody, and then they put them in a mine shaft and then they quit. They're like, I can't do this, this sucks. Being able to put somebody in an environment that they're going to be working in to one, see if they can do it, two, see if they want to do it, that's a lot cheaper than hiring somebody in, spending 60 grand and then sending them underground to last one day. Lockheed Martin again, this is what I was talking about. So all of these little dots here are projected on with the HoloLens, and they just literally go one by one and put the screws in. But they can't do that. The old way was they opened a paper manual, they looked, okay, number one, they walk over, put the screw in, check, and they did that for every screw. But being able to do this, they can just put the headset on, boom, boom, boom. Firefighters are learning how to use this. This is a thing called Flame Trainer. What they did was they took a Vive tracking puck, and what that is just it tracks in 3D space. So they just connect it to a regular hose and put a training together in VR. So now you can train in VR on what it's like to put out a big fire. Police are learning how to shoot. I don't know why. It's Florida, right? Everybody has guns. It's okay. But they're also learning empathy training. Empathy training is important. How to talk people down. You know, this is real, you know, police training. And then these guys here, what they're learning right here, and this is really cool, they're learning empathy training, what it feels like to be a mentally ill person and putting the police in the shoes of a mentally ill person. Because if you're a homeless person, you know maybe you just smoke some crack, or maybe you're just having a bad day mentally, and then two police come over and start talking to you. Maybe you think they're yelling at you. Maybe you think they're monsters. Who knows what's going through your head? But giving the police that kind of embodiment to know what other people are feeling really gives them a sense of empathy when they're dealing with mentally ill people. Again, more shooting, and the military, and Walmart. So Walmart, they've been training people. Their first training scenario was kind of like this. It was Black Friday. So they took Black Friday and trained people on what to do. Right? So Walmart's training 1 million people in VR this year. That's an incredible number of people. Do you think a company like Walmart is going to invest that much money and time in a technology that doesn't work? I don't think so. And Ed loves VR. I mean, let's be honest. He's so happy right now. Kids love VR too. This is really cool. Has anybody heard of Axon Park? Axon Park is a group out of Silicon Valley. And what they're doing is they're actually training developers to make VR by putting them in VR to learn how to do it. So they've got a master guy who built a bunch of amazing video games. He's leading the courses in VR to teach them how to build VR. It's very meta. The National Space Center is building an XR lab that will teach kids about mixed reality, spatial computing, augmented reality, spatial audio. Very, very cool. This will be open probably in 2021. Zennial Digital, these guys are here. If you haven't visited them over in the front here, Zennial Digital is creating really, really beautiful education components. One of the things that really stuck with me, I put on a VR headset, and I was walking in a little forest, and there was a mushroom, and it highlighted, and I was like, okay, cool. I clicked the mushroom, and instead of, seeing some information about the mushroom, I shrunk to ant size, and now the mushroom is a tree size. What a great way to learn. Then I walked inside the mushroom, and I could see how spores were made, and I learned all about the mushroom. I'll never forget that. I was there. I was inside a mushroom. Right? I didn't take mushrooms, I was inside the mushrooms. But, they've created a bunch of these wonderful modules. And I think, if you have a chance to go try them, they've got one on the Vive, but they've also got a climate change one on Magic Leap that is really magical. So give it a try. Some of the companies working in VR and AR training, Upskill just raised, $20 million. Striver, $20 million. PTC is really crushing it with this stuff. Active, UBMax, MetaVRse. These are all companies really pushing with this enterprise training, and it's really taking off now. Now, what are some of the things that we're going to need in the future? Avatars. We're going to need human-like avatars. This is a company called Soul Machines. They're getting very, very close to photoreal avatars. They're still a little creepy, won't lie, but very close. This video's not going to play, but this is another one. If you have a chance to look it up, it's called Real-Time Mic. And basically, it's this guy talking, and it's real time. He's rigged his face. It's really incredible. Haptic gloves. Being able to reach out and grab something and physically feel it. These gloves here are called VR glove, V-R-G-L-U-V, VR glove. And you can reach out and grab something. They have force feedback in the hands. So when you reach out and grab something virtual, it feels like you're grabbing something physical. They have haptics in the fingers. There's haptic suits. This is called the Tesla suit. It's got, I think it's something like 68 haptic points all through the thing. Great for military simulators, you know, maybe you get shot in the back of the leg, I don't know. But it's got hot and cold built in it as well. So this is something where, you know, you can start to really expand how you train. It's not just about the visual, but now you've got the haptics. Now you've got the touch. Now you've got scent. This is real. So this is a company called Vaxo. They have a scent machine that plugs in and it just snaps underneath your headset, and you can have up to 5 scents. And you can program them. So you can build it in, they have a Unity SDK, and you can plug it into Unity, and you can say, and when I tried this was crazy. I was at Silicon Valley VR meetup 5 years or 3 years ago, and I thought they were punking me. They put on the VR headset and he's like, pick up the cup of coffee and smell it. Cool, pick up the coffee. Smells like coffee, awesome. He goes, pick up the chocolate bar. Smells like chocolate, this is cool. He goes, smell the girl. I look beside me and there's this anime girl. I'm like, I don't even know what to say right now. So I was like, and I said, smelled like perfume. But it was pretty damn cool. Smell is one of those senses that you'll never forget. But imagine, you know, training somebody, for example, in a mine shaft, and it smells like sulfur down there. Giving them that exposure therapy before they go down. Volumetric capture is going to be a huge thing. This is Metastage. It's, again, a Microsoft product. Metastage allows you to capture volumetrically, meaning from a bunch of cameras, it captures you in 3D, and then you can drop me on stage. I can stand next to myself on stage in AR. This is going to be really, really a big part of how we distribute three-dimensional content. But right now it's pretty expensive. It's about $10,000 a minute to capture people in volumetric, and it creates an enormous amount of data, like petabytes. Intel Studios has another studio in LA. It's 10,000 square foot, and they have 100 cameras capturing video, like, but entire scenes, like the size of this theater. We capture everything. What that's going to do for entertainment is amazing. Imagine watching a movie, but instead of watching a movie, you're in the movie, and you can watch it from any angle. You could be the protagonist, you could be the lead person, or you could be the dog, watching from the dog standpoint. It's crazy. And you know, have you ever seen football where they pan around and you can see kind of from every angle in the field? That's Intel's technology with that. So this is Metastage, there's Intel, there's actually 50, I think as of today, there's something like 56 sites around the world that do volumetric capture. What about spatial audio? Audio is vital to the immersion of virtual and augmented reality. Being able to know where things are coming from, sounds are important. And it also, I don't know if you've ever made, if anybody's made a VR experience, or especially 360, and everybody just puts it on and looks straight ahead. And all the data is like, yeah, 99% of people just stare straight ahead. Audio is one of those subtle cues. If you hear something from over here, it actually forces you to turn around. So people are like using big arrows, look right! You just put a little sound over there. Oh, cool. And one of the most amazing spatial audio demos on the Magic Leap, there's one by Sennheiser, and you can like grab a light ball, and it's got sound attached to it, and you can go and put it on the floor, and as you walk away, you can hear it over there. It's so cool. And you can put sounds all around you, and you can grab it and move it to the back of the room. Spatial audio is one of those overlooked things, and it's getting easier and easier to bake in. Now, how's this for spatial audio? So that's a space shuttle, and this is how they test for vibrations. Those are all subwoofers around it. It's 2 million watts of sound. It's measured at 156 decibels, which in the next room where the operators are, they have double ear protection. It's measured at 132 decibels in the next room. This is meant to shake the shit out of it and break it. But yeah, that's some spatial audio. VR in a box, look at this. This is really cool. This is really amazing for schools. Being able to just have a box that rolls around or a cart, this is coming. I mean, it's still early days and nobody's really figured it out yet, but being able to do this, I know HTC Vive's doing it with their Focus. They've got a cart, education card, you roll it in, and it charges them automatically. So these are coming along. They're not quite there yet, but great start. This one here plugs in, it's using the phone, so it's a Google Cardboard type experience, but they've kind of developed it all so that it all fits in a box. Pretty interesting. AI, I'm not going to get into this because we're going to go down the rabbit hole if we go into AI. But if you're not thinking about artificial intelligence, you really need to. AI is going to really radically change how we educate, how we train, how we learn, and we'll be able to hyper-personalize and contextualize learning. Learning will not be just be, I went to school for, until university, and then, I went to some courses at school. It'll be, I want to learn anything, anytime, anywhere, and you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to look at something and say, what is that? It will tell you what it is, how it's made, where you can buy it, and everything about it. That's going to be pervasive in the world. And so keep your eye on artificial intelligence and natural language processing. How do we communicate with our avatars? How do the avatars communicate with us? They have to understand us in any language. They have to be able to speak to us in any language. And they have to be able to do so in a way that it recognizes anybody's accents. So this is really important to the growth of this industry. If you want to learn more, there's a bunch of great resources. I run a podcast and a news aggregator called XR for Business. You can sign up for xrforbusiness.io, and I've done about 70 podcast interviews with experts all around the world. I'm hoping to have Dan on my podcast, and John's been on it. So, here's some great resources. This is a great slide you should take a picture of if you want to learn more. But yeah, this is where I get all my information from, to be honest, except for the top one. I contribute to that one, but I read all the rest of them. But this is a great place to learn. Got pictures? Okay, good. If you want to sign up for the XR for Business newsletter, I'm happy to send out any this presentation and also any of the reports that were mentioned here. I've got them all in a package. I'm happy to send them out to anybody. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can you go to the stand on the stage? Questions?
Would you go back one slide so we can get that?
Now, I had a comment. I noticed, Joe O'Connell, I noticed when the smell VR thing come up, you were chuckling. And I was wondering if you were thinking about how your tent or your rucksack smelled back in the Army after 6 weeks. Can you imagine that? Bringing back that smell.
How do we create that, though? I mean, that's going to be a mixture of coffee smell and underarm pit. Put it together and yeah. We'll talk to Vaxco. We'll get them to make it for us. Custom sets. What questions do people have? Anybody? Yes, absolutely.
Sir, any ballpark figure for cost for curriculum development in the space?
Cost for curriculum development in space in what technology?
Per minute in
What technology? VR, AR?
VR and AR, I guess that'd be two separate categories.
Okay, so it varies. It could be $1,000 a minute. It could be $1 million a minute. It depends on the level of quality, how high quality the models are, what you're pushing out to, what devices. The problem is, it's how long is a piece of string. You can't really answer that question. It really comes down to the partners you're working with. It shouldn't be that expensive anymore. Products like Unity and Unreal are getting easier and easier to use every single day. So what I would encourage you to do is have someone on your team, maybe find somebody on your team that's passionate about this, and have them start building stuff. There's lots of tutorials now. When we started this, there were no tutorials. It was crazy. It was like, how do we do this? I don't know, make it up. But there's tons of tutorials out there. There's lots of information out there. There's lots of little agencies and people. I know Zennial Digital, they're building stuff. If there's something specific that you need, then they can do it. There's a company called, one second. I can't remember now. I'll get to you. There's a company that's made 700 VR school-based programs. So you can learn 700 different modules. What's it called? VR? Does anybody know what it's called? I can't remember. Anyway, it'll come to me. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for that. Yeah.
So what solutions have you seen in the VR or the XR space for, I guess, consumer retail? Let's say like clothing, fashion for that matter.
Clothing and fashion is tough, and I'll tell you why. A thing called limbic data, being able to have clothes that kind of match and fall and stuff, it's a really hard problem to solve. I know Google's working on it, a bunch of companies are working on Alibaba. There's a lot of things right now where you can try things on. So for example, I wrote an article called AR's Killer App. VTOs or virtual try-ons. Being able to use your phone, you ever Snapchat filters and you got like bunny ears? Well, being able to try on glasses, necklaces, watches, shoes, using just the phone that you have in your hand, that is already happening right now. I know Sprint used AR to train their staff. So they basically, everybody's got a phone, so they just pushed out an app and said, here, you have to run through this. And the one thing about Sprint, they pushed out this app and you pointed at the brochure, and the brochure came to life, and they had like great retention rates and everything. Then they saw this anomaly. It was like, why are some people redoing the learning 10, 20, 30 times? They're like, well, this makes no sense. Why would somebody do learning that many times? What they realized was the employees were learning it, and then they were using it to teach their customers. And I think about that. The marketing side of things is the exact same as your education and training. So maybe can they talk together, you know, and use the same assets? If you make 3D digital assets and environments and stuff for learning, those same things can be repolished, retouched over for marketing. So you can split the budgets. So that's one way to offset the cost, is get your marketing company or your marketing department to pay for it. I'm serious, I'm dead serious, yes?
Remember that little viral video of a little girl with a magazine and she's trying to swipe with a magazine?
Yeah.
That affected me. So, what about this scares you?
What about this scares me? First of all, I had I was on the webinar this morning talking about cyber sickness. And what scares me is that we're putting VR on kids, and we have literally no data on that, whether that messes with their brains or not. No idea. So I don't know how many people want to enroll their children in that study. I don't. But I've had my kids, but I would think right now that scares me the most, is that we don't know what we're doing long term to our brains. I do know this: the impact in training times and being able to speed up human learning is probably going to be more beneficial than the detrimental effects. So it's always that, cost versus benefit. And I think in this case, the benefits will far outweigh any costs or threats, but they're still there and you have to be cognizant of them. I think that scares me a lot. The one thing that really scares me is the fact that over the next 10 years, AI is going to really, how do I do this without scaring everybody? It's going to replace a lot of jobs. And it's not that there won't be jobs created. It'll create tons and tons of jobs. But imagine when H&R Block partners with an AI company and starts applying that to accounting. They have 70,000 accountants. What happens when they realize AI is better than that? And they don't need those people anymore? What happens when another company decides, hey, we're gonna apply AI to legal, and my AI algorithm can read 1 million case files a minute. How many can your lawyers read? Not that much. I guarantee you, law is going to end up being a war of AI, and you're going to have really, really good lawyers at the top, really bad lawyers at the bottom, and AI in the middle. And that's going to be a thing. And so, as we move into exponential growth, and these technologies start to replace, drivers, accountants, legal, medical, that's what scares me. Is it's not so much that there won't be jobs, it's how do we transition people to new jobs. Here's a crazy stat, and I actually don't know where the source is. Maybe Dan, you can answer it. 65% of the jobs that grade 1s will graduate into, so if you're in grade 1 right now, the jobs that you graduate into, 65% of them don't exist yet. 12 years ago, app developer wasn't a job. 3 years ago, VR developer wasn't a job. What's next? We don't know. So if you look 10 years out, I don't know what the jobs of the future are going to be. How do you prepare people for the jobs of the future that don't exist yet, that we don't even know are coming? That's what scares me.
You put up quite a few examples of uses in aviation and airlines there. Is that because they're early adopters, or is that because you're doing a lot of work with them?
Yeah, and it probably comes from military, to be honest. So the question was, there was a lot of aviation examples. There's been a lot, actually. I think it's one, they have lots of budgets. Two, they use it for design and training. So if you look at the simulator central of the world here, simulators work. You wouldn't, I'll put it this way, you wouldn't let a pilot fly a plane without putting the hours in on a simulator. We just wouldn't let that. Why are we letting surgeons operate without doing that? Without, OSO, which is OSO VR, is a surgical training VR simulator. They did a poll of surgeons. They said, how many of you are comfortable doing surgery right now? It was 0. 0. And with VR, it was 80% they felt comfortable because they'd done it over and over and over again. So I think this is going to become mandatory for anything that's critical, mission critical flight, medical, stuff like that. You're going to have to train in a simulator many, many times and make mistakes on a virtual patient rather than a real one.
Curious about the global picture on this and what the differences are, different countries, just globally.
Sure.
What you're seeing.
China's way ahead in almost everything, and the reason is the Chinese government has invested a ton of money. To put it in perspective, China has implemented AI education from grade 5 on. They did a study, 3,000 kids in China, 3,000 kids in America, and they said, rank these 7 jobs as jobs that you want. The number 1 job in China was astronaut. The number 1 job in America, anybody? Fireman? What was it? YouTube influencer, yeah! Amazing, right? Okay, so let's assume YouTube influencers is the job of the future. What about the avatars that they're creating, the virtual avatars that are now YouTube influencers? Does anybody know Little Michaela? You know, like you follow her on Instagram, she's got like 2 million followers. She makes $10 million a year, she's not real. So that's gonna be a thing, deep fakes are gonna be a thing. So I don't even know if I answered your question, I'm sorry. I got on a tangent.
It was a start. We'll talk tomorrow.
Any other question? Yeah, sorry.
So coming from the defense industry and kind of leading an AR, VR team, one of the big issues we have is engineers are not good at making content. I mean, you see how they make PowerPoints, they're usually awful. Not saying yours is awful. But the issue that we're having is, you know, it's not even the STEM field, it's the whole art and creative field. They're the ones that usually can come up with the best content. And unless you want to put PowerPoints essentially back into AR.
Oh, I've seen that too. It sucks.
Right, you just put pictures
PowerPoint
back
sucks
in
in
AR.
AR. It's like, still PowerPoint.
That's going to be the big issue is there's going to be so much content that needs to be created that's going to be an industry in itself, is either creating content or AI is going to advance in such a way that that's going to take over again.
We've already seen AI, so there's a thing on Google, I can't remember what it's called, but you basically draw a line and it'll fill in mountains. You draw a line of squares, it'll fill in buildings. Like being able to fill in environments just by putting a scribbly line. So I think AI is gonna do that, but really when it comes down to the content is going to be a big problem. And I'm gonna tell you now, right now we have an overabundance of VR and AR developers and agencies and content creators. It was like, come and hire me, please. Fast forward 3 years when every company in the world wakes up to this and goes, holy shit, Walmart's seeing 900% decrease in training, we gotta do that, or we're not gonna be competitive. And there's a rush to make content. There's not gonna be, and there's very few schools teaching this stuff. So, yesterday I did this talk at the Dave School, the digital animation and special effects school at Universal Studios. And, there are 150 kids that are learning digital animation. We need to amplify that by 10,000. And to look, back to your question about globally, India is a really big hub for content right now. That company that I was talking about that's made 700 modules, they are in India. They've got 200 people making content all day, every day. So I think there's going to be a push, and we're going to need more content people. There's a lot of people coming from video gaming, a lot of people coming from music, coming into VR and AR. So it's great. Yeah.
What do you think about Facebook Horizon? You see that today, the social virtual reality platform being made by Facebook?
I haven't had a chance to watch it. I apologize. I'm on the road.
What do you think about social virtual reality?
Social virtual reality is awesome. Has anybody been in a collaborative VR experience? Well, show of hands. How much better is that than being in it by yourself? Like, it's so cool. You can talk to somebody, you can look them, and when we have eye tracking and you actually look people in the eyes and see their hands, and I think social VR and social AR as well, being able to grab a hologram and have a conversation with somebody around the world, I think it's going to decrease travel quite a bit. But I also think that it's just right. Your teacher now can be, instead of going to a school where you have a high school teacher teaching 6 different subjects poorly, you can have one teacher who's really good at that, teaching a one-to-many from one location to every location. And I think that's really going to take off. I think there's right now we just did a collaboration VR analysis of all the different platforms. There's 53 or 54 collaboration VR platforms right now that we found. So I think it's going to take off. I think it's going to be a thing. There's AltSpace, there's High Fidelity, there's all sorts. And Microsoft bought AltSpace.
One more.
Okay, sure.
Hi, Alan.
Hey.
So you showed a picture of Gartner's hype cycle.
Yes.
And how AR had seemingly made it out of the trough of disillusion.
Yeah.
However, that reminded me of a video I saw swirling around LinkedIn of a few people in a surgical setting, surgical theater, seemingly operating on someone or preparing to operate on someone. They were all wearing magic leaves. This made me feel a little bit uneasy because even though the potential is there, are we so sure that the hardware is out of the trough of disillusionment? Maybe the idea of AR is, but what are your thoughts on where the hardware is today and where we want it to go?
Somebody quoted this the other day, like, I don't know how I feel about surgery. The headsets are centimeter accuracy. I'm just gonna leave that one there. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that for training people, wonderful. On like real-time, surgery, I actually don't know the answer to that. I really don't know what's the best idea for that. Sorry.
You don't want me stepping in and helping answer your question.
Please, yeah.
Last year, I interviewed a lot of people in the medical field, surgery, and virtual reality training. And surgery was one of those.
Can you speak up so everybody can hear?
Yeah, absolutely. Virtual reality surgery was one of those things. So a lot of your surgeons who are doing these kind of experimental surgeries will go learn the experimental surgery, train for maybe a couple weeks doing that surgery, and then never do that surgery again until they have to do that surgery to save somebody's life. Whether it's accurate, I mean, that's a great a problem and concern, but the fact that they have the ability to practice to a certain degree, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, I think the practicing is the key.
But also there are tools with haptics or like synchrogenics, which 3D Systems bought from Israel a decade ago, that have incredibly accurate, for surgical training, that provide incredibly accurate replicas of the body. So
Great.
you can combine VR and something like that to deliver much more accurate.
Well, I think what he's saying is that on a live patient, I'm wearing a HoloLens or a Magic Leap, and it's like pointing an arrow here, and I'm like, oh yeah, screw in this angle. Is it right? I don't know. It's kind of terrifying, but hey, it will get there, and at least they're trying. And if it improves safety, I mean, obviously we have, we have organizations that mandate these things. It was the Food and Drug Administration. We have, organizations that should be watching out for us. So hopefully they're doing their job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. How about that? So, okay.